The air crackled with the electric anticipation of Halloween. I was 22, navigating the throng of costumed revelers at Nick's annual Halloween bash. Nick, my former best friend, had always been obsessed with the holiday, transforming his house into a macabre spectacle. His parents, conveniently absent on their own New York escapade, provided the perfect backdrop for his extravagant celebration. This year, like every year, no expense was spared. The house pulsed with an unsettling energy, adorned with gruesome props that hinted at Nick's over-the-top spending. He'd even constructed a labyrinthine maze of cardboard walls, draped with eerie wallpaper, turning the familiar space into a terrifying funhouse. The party was a swirling vortex of costumed figures, the air thick with the haze of smoke and the din of excited chatter. I, along with Nick, Vinny G, Joey, and Q, found ourselves upstairs in Nick's room, the music and clamor from below a muffled hum. We passed the bong around, the effects of the smoke clouding our judgment. Suddenly, two sharp, loud bangs pierced the air, jolting us from our hazy revelry. Nick, in a flurry of clumsy panic, fumbled with the door, throwing it open to the chaos unfolding downstairs. A cacophony of screams, both male and female, assaulted our ears. It was a primal chorus of terror, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. We instinctively pulled Nick back into the room, urging him to shut the door. Even in our altered state, a sense of dread settled upon us. Nick, his face ashen and his eyes wide with fear, slammed the door shut, locking it with a click that echoed in the sudden quiet. He whirled around, his expression mirroring someone who had just witnessed a horrific crime. "What did you see? What's going on?" we demanded, our voices a mixture of fear and confusion. Nick's only response was a whispered plea, "Hide." No further questions were asked. We all understood. A chilling premonition settled over us. Nick flicked off the lights, plunging the room into darkness. He scrambled into the closet with Joey, while I dove under the bed with Q. Vinny G squeezed into a storage box, the confines suddenly feeling too small. The music downstairs abruptly cut off, leaving a stark, unsettling silence. Then, a man's voice boomed through the house, laced with anger and menace. "Shut up," he roared. A girl's scream, sharp and piercing, cut through the silence, followed by another bang. Then, quiet. The man's voice returned, now a torrent of angry words, but the details were lost in the pounding of my heart. I couldn't make out what he was saying, and I knew I wouldn't remember later. We heard other voices now, men shouting. It was clear, there were at least 3 intruders in the house, maybe more. The thought sent a wave of fear through me. We huddled in our hiding places, the silence punctuated only by the frantic beating of our hearts, waiting for what would come next. The muffled sounds from downstairs intensified, replaced by the heavy thud of boots ascending the staircase. The footsteps echoed down the hallway, stopping abruptly outside Nick's bedroom door. We held our breath, the silence amplifying the frantic pounding that followed as someone, likely using their shoulder, tried to force the locked door open. The wood splintered with each jarring impact. After several futile attempts, the distinct sound of gunshots ripped through the air, the sharp cracks shattering the remnants of our false security. The doorknob, now riddled with bullet holes, gave way, and the door swung inward with a groan. Downstairs, a chorus of terrified cries erupted, followed by a chilling silence and another gunshot. My heart hammered against my ribs. Nick and I clamped our hands over our mouths, desperately trying to muffle the sound of our breathing. From my vantage point beneath Nick's bed, I watched through the tattered cloth that draped the bed frame as a pair of black boots, encased in ripped denim jeans, moved with terrifying purpose toward the closet. The closet door creaked open. I could hear Nick's voice, trembling and pleading. He begged the intruder not to kill him, offering a substantial sum of money if they would just leave. He identified himself as the owner of the house. The intruder, unmoved by Nick's pleas, coldly ordered him downstairs. The rest of us remained hidden, paralyzed by fear. Joey, it seemed, had escaped detection. A tense quiet descended upon the room. From downstairs, we could hear the faint murmur of voices, Nick speaking with the intruders, but their words were too indistinct to understand. The agonizing wait felt like an eternity, perhaps 20 minutes, before the front door slammed shut, the sound reverberating through the house. Nick returned, running back upstairs to tell us they were gone. The descent back into the living room was a descent into hell. The scene that unfolded before me was the most horrifying I have ever witnessed. 2 bodies lay sprawled on the floor, lifeless and broken. Jen and Robbie, 2 friends, 2 vibrant souls, were gone. Their heads were a gruesome mess, blood pooling around them. I still miss them terribly. I won't dwell on the details of the police investigation that followed. Despite the overwhelming smell of marijuana that permeated the house, the police were primarily focused on identifying the masked assailants who had murdered 2 innocent college students. Nick, in the brief moments we had together upstairs, had told us there were 4 intruders in total. They were all dressed in fedoras, vendetta masks, coats, and gloves. They had demanded $100,000 in cash. When Nick couldn't produce the money, they forced him to fill a sack with his most valuable possessions. All the partygoers who had been held hostage were also forced to throw their wallets into the sack, where they would be shot. The aftermath of the massacre devastated Nick. He spiraled into a deep depression, seeking solace in alcohol. He stopped attending classes, ultimately dropping out of school. He descended into the world of hard drugs, experimenting with meth and heroin. I had one meaningful conversation with him after the incident. He was more honest and vulnerable than I had ever seen him. Tears streamed down his face as he held a pipe in his hand, telling me about the constant pain he lived with, the guilt of knowing he was responsible for the deaths of 2 of his best friends. In July of 2013, less than a year after the horrific night, Nick succumbed to a heroin overdose, his life tragically cut short.